finally made the podcast.
I did.
It's good. So no one else has interviewed you yet?
Not really, other than that one very short, but it was mostly just Jesse interviewing, and I just said a few words and stuff.
Okay.
So.
Well, so let's start from where you're from.
Okay, I'm born in Arkansas, but raised in southwestern Missouri. So I'd say Springfield, but not really in the middle of nowhere. Just in the Ozark Hills.
And then, what were your parents like? What did they do for a living?
My dad was a pharmacist.
Okay.
And my mom has done mostly stay-at-home mom, but she's always taught piano lessons. She's done lactation consulting, some midwifery stuff, kind of randomness, really.
Did you grow up around the church, or so how did you come to Christ? Were you just kind of in the church and?
Well, so I was raised in the church, and so I kind of knew, I knew from an early age the truth, but it wasn't personal to me, and it wasn't. And I remember what kind of hit me. I was like 6 or 7, and my older brother, Michael, got saved, and he was baptized, and he's like reading his Bible at night, and I shared a room with him. And my 6, 7-year-old brain is like, okay, something is different. Something is Michael's gone, not gone. It was like Michael's gone normal. Michael's gotten saved. Michael's joined the clan, and it really got me thinking. And I couldn't really read at the time, so I would have Michael read me scripture at night, and then I'd ask him questions. Because at that point I knew, okay, you get saved, you go to heaven. You don't get saved, you go to hell. And that was about it. So I'd ask Michael questions, and Michael, new believer, would always be talk to daddy. And so finally I was just like, I'm just going to go talk to daddy. So I don't know why. For some reason I didn't want to maybe it was because he worked. I don't really remember, but I remember I would wait till everybody was asleep. And then I would go upstairs and I would knock on my parents' bedroom door. And I remember daddy opened it and I said, I want to know how to get saved. And he was kind of like, okay.
How old were you?
I think I was 6 at this time. Probably this would have been fall before my 7th birthday. And it was just, in my little kid brain, that was just about as simple as it was. How do I get saved? Because I don't want to burn in hell. And, I had these dreams. It's stupid, really stupid. But, as my little kid brain, heaven was a treehouse and everybody went up in the rapture and the trapdoor closed on me and I fell into the fires. But I remember asking him, and then I don't know if it was 6 months, I don't remember how long it was, but I would go up to daddy's room, once a week. And we would get in the living room, everybody's in bed, and we would just talk about stuff. And I remember he talked a lot to me, and there was this point where I was terrified of going to hell in my little kid brain, and I remember I want to get saved. And I remember daddy telling me, I don't want you deciding to follow Jesus just to get out of hell. I don't want you just saying you're saved or making a profession just to get out of hell. That's not what this is all about. You need to realize that you need forgiveness. You need to actually trust Jesus to save you. And that took a while. But I remember one Saturday night, I don't really know, I was getting a shower before going to church, and I don't really know, it wasn't as a little 6-year-old, 7-year-old, I had done something, I hadn't gone robbed a bank or something, but I remember just feeling that I need God. I need Jesus. I need to be saved. And I understood it. I understood forgiveness. And I remember going to daddy and saying, look, this isn't just me wanting to get out of hell. I need to get saved right now. I'm not going on without it. And I just remember daddy just said, he said, well, you can sit and pray with me, but I'm not going to pray all the words for you. I'm not just going to repeat, this isn't me, this has to be you. And I don't really remember what I said, I don't remember any of the words. I just remember that I trusted Jesus and I asked him for forgiveness, and ever since then it's just been a daily walk. And I guess I don't stake my faith necessarily on a single moment or a single thing, but on the fact that I know that my trust is in the blood of Christ. And that's not changing.
So were you involved in the church pretty early on then with activities and?
Yeah, well, our church was pretty small. So maybe like 30 people, 40 people. So there wasn't really, like, we never had Sunday school. We'd have a family camp every year that our church put on. It'd bring 100, 200 people. And I was always very involved in that, just volunteer stuff, sticking out the hymn books, just general stuff like that. And then as I got older, like, I feel like really I didn't spiritually grow a lot until my teenage years. Like, I feel like as a kid, I wanted to follow Jesus, and I loved Jesus, and I read my Bible once I started learning to read, but I didn't. I feel like there was a point that I really just started getting in the meat, and that wasn't until I was like 13, 14.
Wasn't until you were 13.
I don't know. I just feel like it wasn't. I feel like I was growing. I understood stuff. I was trying to follow Jesus, trying to serve Him, but I feel like there was a point in my teenage years where it really just more. I don't know what the right word is. Just, I feel like I just grew a lot more.
So how did you get involved with Jesse and their ministry?
Well, let's see. My sister Mindy. Well, I've known. It goes back further than that. Well, Jesse stayed at our house once, traveling. Just spent the night. I don't know if he even stayed more than. Might have just spent the night and gone on. But that kind of started the relationship. And then in 2015, I think, my older sister went to India with him in a team. And then while on that team, she met her now husband, my brother-in-law, who lives in North Carolina. And so I traveled out with her to North Carolina, and it just kind of, that relationship deepened. And then in 2019, the very beginning of 2019, well, I'll go back. So, because this is like the actual involvement in the ministry. Like, I was always I knew what it was, I knew the relationship. Like, we always had Jesse on the refrigerator, a picture of him and his family, and prayed for him, for a long time. But in the fall of 2018, I remember it was at this family camp my church put together. The speaker there, he's from South Africa, he's actually passed away now. He preached a sermon on being fishers of men. Just out of Luke and the accounts in the Gospels where Jesus called the disciples. And I remember I prayed at that family camp, and it was kind of a stupid prayer, but I just prayed, I want to be sent. And I don't care whether it's Mongolia or McDonald's. And that was the prayer. If it's McDonald's, that's fine. If it's Mongolia, that's fine. I don't really care. I don't care if it's, this type of ministry or that type of ministry. I just want to be useful. Because I felt at the time like I was working a job. I was 16 at the time, working a job. I saved up to buy my first car, but I didn't feel like I was being useful for the gospel. I wasn't really discipling anybody. I wasn't going out and evangelizing, nothing. Well, then come winter of 2019, my brother-in-law Eric, who's been serving with Jesse, approached me about going to Peru. And he just kind of threw it out there. We were at my grandma's house for Christmas. He threw it out there like this. Just a random thing.
Hey, you want to
But,
go to
it was just like, hey, we're just doing this, trip together. And he didn't even say it like, you're invited. He just kind of said, he kind of threw it out there, kind of this like, eh. But it stuck in my mind. It was like, I could not get it out of my mind. And a week later, I remember asking him, because I always knew when Jesse would take the young people over that it was 18 and older. And I wasn't even 17 yet. I was turning 17 in May. This was like January. So I remember specifically asking Eric, after a week or two, I'm like, okay, I'm super interested, but is this even possible? Like, I don't want to get my hopes up if it's for nothing. And Eric's like, oh yeah, we talked about this like months ago. And so that was like a huge answer to prayer in a way, because I'm like, wait a minute, God already thought of this before I even knew this was a possibility. This isn't, and so then I talked to my pastor about it, I talked to my parents about it, and it was just all green lights. And so then I ended up going to Peru in the summer of 2019 with them. And then after that, I came back and kind of was, I don't know what I came back very dissatisfied with my American life. Extremely dissatisfied. And some of it, looking back, some of it wasn't righteous discontentment. Some of it was literally like you've been to a wonderful place in the world, you come back, and you're just discontent, and you shouldn't be.
This place sucks.
Yeah, it's just like I went back to my job at the grain elevator, and I'm sitting there dumping semis and talking to truck drivers. And I should have learned contentment there, but I didn't. But it was interesting that a week or two after I got back, I get a call from my boss, and it's this boys ministry live-in program for troubled teenage youth that actually the grain elevator I worked for, they're like connected to it, and my church had known about it for a long time. Well, I get this call. I maybe met the guy once in my life, and I get this call from my boss, and he's like, "Hey, Mr. Mack, the guy that runs the ministry, his name, he's like, Mr. Mack really wants to know if you would be willing to come work at the boys ministry." And I'm kind of like, I've like said hi to this guy once. He doesn't know me. Like, I don't know what he, how do you say hi to somebody, I want you to come work at my ministry or whatever. But I was dissatisfied enough that I told him, well, let me pray about it. And I hung up. And I walked around my yard for 2 or 3 minutes, and I texted him. I said, I'll go check it out. Like, why not? It can't be. And I didn't have a car because I kind of totaled my car right before I went to Peru. I didn't wreck it. I drowned it. It was really stupid.
Nice. How'd that happen?
Well, I was on the way home from work, and the roads were flooded. And for some reason, it was literally just teenage stupidity. Like, I'm going down the road, and it's flooded. And so I'm trying to get, I'm trying to find an alternate route. But I never, changed directions on my maps, on my phone, nothing. I'm just like, let's find a side road, and all the side roads are flooded. Looking back, I could have driven 2 miles up the road and taken another road and been fine. But it wasn't in my brain. I'm trying to get home. So I just decided, I looked at the water, and I thought, it doesn't look that deep, we'll just try. And so I go in, I'm easing in, and it comes up above the wheels, and I'm like, oh no. But then I'm too far invested, so I just floored it. And I got out of the water about 200 feet further, and the car just died.
Oh man.
And I had flooded the engine and bent the piston valves, and
wow.
It was the end of the car.
Yeah.
But so I came back, from Peru, and I don't have a car. But I went over to the boys ministry just for a week, and it was different. I mean, it's like a dorm with a bunch of guys that are rebellious teenagers that they've either been sent there by the law because they're in trouble, or they've been sent there by their parents. Most of them were adopted from foster care and stuff. So to me, it's a different world. I remember at the end of the week, I just agreed, I'll come every other week. I don't know if I worked I think I came Sunday afternoon. I'd drive after church, and I'd work till Friday or Saturday, and it's 4 hours from my parents.
That's a good drive.
So it's on the other side of the state in eastern Missouri. And then they had this little truck that I bought, so it worked out. And I did that for about a year, and then I started working there full time. So I pretty much lived there, pretty much moved there. And then I got kind of reconnected is not the right word with Jesse and the ministry, because I'd seen him and Eric had came out in 2020, and I went down and met him and did some rock climbing and stuff, and so I'd see him. But then it was in 2021 when they started the walk that I got more connected to him, mostly because, even back to Peru, I really liked Bethany. And so when I left Peru, I'm not going to say I went to Peru for that because I didn't. Because I really prayed hard, hey, Lord, I can't go because of this. I have to go out of genuine motives. I need to go to want to share the gospel. I need to go to serve you. If there's bonus involved, I'm not going to complain. But I remember I left Peru, and I was like, hey, I'm only 17, But I'm like, I'm going to marry this girl one day. I will do it. Unless God specifically is absolutely no. Unless he puts a big roadblock, I'm going to do this. And if I have to wait 5 years, whatever.
So be it.
And looking back, I think part of me was fueled by this stupid idea that no one marries the childhood sweetheart. And I was like, I'm going to break the rule. Just cause. But another part of it is I saw in Bethany someone younger than me by a year or two that was spiritually mature. Like I could talk to Bethany, like in Peru, we would talk about like spiritual things. We talk about mature things, and all the kids my age in my church, I try to bring up something scriptural, and they look at me like a deer in the headlights, and it's like, guys, can we please? And so, in the beginning of 2021, I remember I kind of got in a deeper relationship with Bethany, and so they were out walking. And so I worked a deal with my boss at the boys ministry that every other month I could have a week off work. And I drive them wherever they were walking, I'd walk with them. So and it's just kind of gone from there.
Okay, so let's pick up when you guys get to Madison County. Let's start there.
Okay, so
walk me through it.
I'll have to back up a few days because
back up as many days you need.
So I went out. So Madison County was November. So in September I went out. They were walking in South Dakota. I went out for 2 or 3 weeks, walked with them all the way into Wyoming. And at that time, I had asked Jesse about proposing to Bethany. And we had kind of, we decided this is going to happen. And so I go back home to Missouri, and I'm thinking, I really thought it would be cool to do it on the walk. And otherwise, it was never certain that they'd be home and that I could go visit.
Right.
I didn't know the schedule, so I'm just, well, I'm going to do this
Sounds
on the
like
walk.
a good idea.
Yeah, it was a great idea. So I went home, and I got the ring. Bethany's ring is actually her great-grandmother's that she gave to me to give to her. So I had to go get it resized. I get all this stuff done. So I'm planning to come out there. And then Jesse's son Josiah was going to ride with me out there to meet him. And the whole journey out was an adventure of itself. Because right before I leave, like the week before I leave, I had a flat tire. So I take my truck. My truck's like an old 94, little Mitsubishi, 2-wheel drive, tiny thing. I take it to the mechanic, and they're like, your tie rods are bad. We need to replace them. And I'm like, well, I'm going on like a 1,000-mile road trip. They're like, yeah, you really need to replace them. So the mechanic shop replaces them, but they were apparently in a rush, and they didn't realign those tires. But I just get the truck, and everything feels fine, from the mechanic. So I load up with Josiah, and I had got some snow chains, and I had put a bunch of weight in the back of my truck because I knew it was going to be icy. I take off. I was going to stay with some friends in South Dakota. And about halfway through the trip, I start noticing this whistling sound. And I'm like, something's wrong. So I pull over, and I'm noticing like this wear on my tires. It's not even wear. And I had already decided I was going to get new tires in South Dakota. So I'd already had them bought. They were waiting for me. And so I was like, well, we just needed, going back, I've already got these tires bought here, so we're already over halfway. If I can just get there, I can take them down and get it realigned. That was the thought, and it almost worked. So I'm going up the road, and I'm just praying, Lord, just please let the tires hold out. It's just like 2 more hours. Just let the tires hold out. Get to people's house. It's terrible. I hate it. I hate imposing on people. It's the worst feeling in the world. When it's like you're coming to stay with someone, and then you realize you have a horrible problem, you can't fix it yourself, and you need help.
Yeah. And
it's that pit in your stomach that you hate, and you have to call them. So I remember calling these people that I've never met, friends of Jesse's that I'm going to go stay with, and I call them, and I'm like, so, I don't know if I'm going to make it to your house or not. Because my tires they're going to blow. My front tires are going to blow soon. And I'm just trying to drive as slow as I can. I'm going to try to get there. And I was 10 miles from their house, and I'm hazard lights. It's the night. I'm on I-29, and we're driving, and the tires are and I could feel it coming, and I looked at Josiah and I said, it's about to happen. And I slow down really. I slow down to 50 miles per hour, and I start pulling over. It goes, real thunk. And I was whoop, onto the shoulder, and I had to get a tow truck, and we ended up getting to these people's house at 1 in the morning. And I'm already okay, am I even supposed to go out here? Is the Lord just putting roadblocks in my path, or is he just testing my faith? What is this? Well, I get there, and this lady we're staying with, her and her husband. We get there, and it's freezing cold. And we get inside, and she goes, "You want steak?" It's like 2 a.m. And I'm like, and I remember I was like, "Yeah, like I'm hungry." And I remember I go to sleep in that bed. I wake up in the morning, and they had taken the wheels off my truck, jacked it up before I was up, had figured out the rim size, had called mechanic shops, and had tires, like 2 front tires, waiting in an appointment in an alignment shop. And I wake up and I'm thinking, one, this is like, these people are incredibly generous. The other part of me is thinking, I don't know how I'm going to pay for all this, but I was definitely not going to let them pay for it. But that argument didn't work. They wouldn't let me pay for anything. Well, then I get my new tires, and so at that point, I had prayed about it, I had thought about it, and I realized, in my mind, I decided, this is not God telling me not to go. And that was just, that I wrote it in my journal, because I really conflicted for a day or two there in South Dakota. It's like, should I just turn around? But I decided, I prayed about it, I searched the scriptures, and I just decided, no, I have to go. I'm supposed to go. That was it. So we head off, and I remember driving into Montana. And Wyoming, the road's really clear. And I get to the Montana state line, and all of a sudden the interstate disappears. And it's just snow. And I'm thinking, this is, if we make it, we're going to Bozeman, and I'm like, if we make it, it's going to be a miracle. But we're driving, I was going to take Josiah to the Battle of Little Bighorn. And so I'm pulling off the exit, and as I'm pulling off, I notice that it's not plowed. Like the side road's not plowed. And I realized if I stop, we won't go again. If I stop, we will spin out, because I'm a little 2-wheel drive truck, like. And so I remember I looked both ways and I just floored it. And I went straight through the road and back onto the exit, back onto the interstate. But I got to Bozeman really late that night. Got up the next morning and was going to drive down to meet them at their little B&B in Island Park. I think it's Island Park, Idaho. And I got up and we drove this little road, and we got down there maybe mid-afternoon. And we went and walked maybe 10 miles, 5 miles, and it was freezing cold. We're walking up 287, and it's icy, and it's dark, and it's like there is nothing like it in Missouri. It's just like, just frozen. And so I remember getting back that night and just praising God for getting out there safely. And I remember I wrote some journal entry about maybe the joys of ministry, or just happy to be out there, and then thinking, okay, like, I need to get my kind of proposal plan kind of in place. Like, I should probably think this through so it's not just like absolutely totally random. And then the next morning we got up and everything was pretty normal. I read my Bible, I wrote my journal, I drank a cup of coffee, bundled up, and we went out to walk. And so we walked most of the morning. I remember me and Bethany were walking together. And we stopped at this road. In the morning, we stopped on this kind of side road. We were trying to get out of the way, hope we're not blocking someone. And where this truck pulled up, and I think Bethany had her camera out, trying to take some pictures of the mountains. And these two guys, they pull up, and they asked, if we're okay. And we said, yeah. We hope we're not blocking your way, whatever. And they said, well, I see you got a camera. If you really want some good pictures of the elk, you just drive this road way up here, take the driveway to the left, park over there, you'll get really good pictures of the elk. We're like, okay, so we drive up that road, and we're getting pictures of elk. So we come back down, they meet up with us, we walk. And then somewhere along the way, we had walked, so we're taking the SAG vehicle now, and Jesse and Eric and Josiah were walking, and we had agreed, it was maybe noonish, early afternoon, we're going to, once we get up here, we might take a break, and we're going to run up to this little place called Cameron and try to find an afternoon coffee. And that was what was on our minds. Other than me thinking, should I propose now? Should I wait? Should I do it tomorrow? Like, what's the, But that's what was on our minds. Okay, we're going to walk this last stretch. It's cold. We're going to get an afternoon coffee. That's what we're thinking. So me and Bethany go up, and we come to this little road. It's got like some gate post or something. There weren't any no trespassing signs or anything. We pulled into the road, and we parked. And then I remember thinking, we probably shouldn't park inside the fence and inside the road, on the road. So let's just pull back out and we'll park on the shoulder. So we're not in anybody's way or whatever. So we did that. We sat there probably 45 minutes just talking. I think we ate some bars or something. And then Jesse and Eric and Josiah come walking up the road. And I remember they get to the road and I think Jesse was getting something out of the box or something. They handed the flag and the cross to me and Bethany, and we're kind of switching out. And this truck drives up. And my instinct, if I'm parked somewhere, we're walking, if a truck drives up, I just wave. It's instant. You just, you wave people, you expect them to wave back. So I wave, and the guy inside is like, doesn't wave back. He's like seething, looks just mad, angry. And he pulls up, and I remember his window came down, and I remember it sounded like screaming. It was just, and I remember that Jesse told him, he said, I'm sorry we're parked here. There's just not very many places to park in the snow. And we're leaving, we're just whatever. And I remember just this F you, this, that, and just screaming. And then he got out of the truck and he ran around the front of the truck. Like the truck's here and the car's here, and he runs around the front of the truck. And he comes running around, and Jesse and Josiah are standing out here, and then he stops dead in his tracks. And I'm over here, so I can't really see Jesse from where I'm at. I can see kind of Jesse and Josiah up here, and he stops dead in his tracks. And I remember he says something like, "You can't pull a gun here. I know the sheriff. I'm friends with the sheriff, and you're going to pay. You something." And I remember Jesse saying, "I'm in fear for my life. And I don't want any trouble, but we're leaving, but you better leave us alone. We don't want any trouble, we're leaving." And I remember him just spewing stuff. You're not welcome here. You ought to be afraid. There's probably rifles trained on you right now. And I remember Jesse telling him, we fear God. We don't fear men. We fear God. But I remember that Jesse put the gun away, and he told Eric, he said, "We don't need this." And he was trying to reason with the guy. And the guy walked up in his face and was just screaming at him, yelling at him, saying, "I'm MAGA, QAnon. You want to get loud," just screaming, yelling. And I remember at that point, this truck drives up with a horse trailer. And me and Bethany are Josiah had walked back at this point. And Eric was standing down there with Jesse. And I remember this truck drives up, and they kind of stopped. And I didn't know, are these this guy's buddies? Are we about to just get beat up? What's about to go down? So I remember that me and Bethany were like, "Josiah, you need to get in the car." I knew this guy is insane. He's not, it wasn't because we've had people walking. I had a guy in North Carolina once that got really bent out of shape over the upside down American flag. But he stayed on his side of the road, and I stayed on my side of the road. And he tried to argue with me about it for 20, 30 minutes. And at the end, I told him, "Look, we're going to have to agree to disagree because I don't have time for this." And he mumbled and he walked off. But this wasn't that. This wasn't, "I'll keep my distance and I'll give my opinion." This was, "I'm going to get in your face. I'm going to scream at you, bully you, make you feel threatened. I'm going to, And so I could tell at that point, this is dangerous. This man is a danger. If these guys are his buddies, this is a danger. And I was afraid enough that I put Josiah in the car. Because I'm like, "You're not, if something goes down, I don't want you out here." And he's already said, you should be afraid. There's probably rifles trained on you.
Right.
He's boasting that you're not welcome here. And I remember then he shoved Jesse and then punched him, and then it got physical, and Eric got between them. And I remember both Eric and Jesse saying, "Don't do it." Just warning the guy, "Don't do it. Don't put your hands on us." And I remember he barreled through Eric into Jesse. And I remember he knocked Jesse on the ground and was on top of Jesse. And Jesse was pretty much invisible, he was down in the snow in the ditch. And I remember he's on top of Jesse, whacking and punching. I remember Eric's on top of him, trying to get him out, hitting him, pulling him, trying to just get him off. Telling him to get off. And I'm just like, well, I gotta go help. Because I can't even see Jesse. He's under a hulk of a beast, of a maniac, pounding him. And so I go over there, And what I've got in my hand is my cross. And I whacked him in the ribs. Just jabbed him because I figured this will cause enough discomfort to get him off. And it didn't really. I mean, he was crazy, but I remember getting him off, and Eric had him in an arm bar, and he asked, "Are you done? Are you done?" And I remember that he let the guy go, and the guy immediately grabbed his hood, grabbed Eric's hood, and was just pulling him down. I mean, he wanted more. Like, we're like, "Hey, are you done?" Like, we don't want to fight. You know, if you're going to get on my father-in-law, or at the time my friend, if you're going to get on top of him and beat him in the snow, you better believe I'm going to come to his rescue. Like, who wouldn't? If you wouldn't, you're a coward.
Might not have been your father-in-law if you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, literally, like, if your friend is beneath somebody that, I don't care if they're a hulk of a man or not. If someone jumps on your friend and they have them pinned on the snow and they're whacking them, and you don't go to their aid, you ought to be ashamed.
Yeah, that ain't your friend if they don't.
No. And so I remember getting him off, and Eric literally came out of his hoodie and backpack. The guy was yanking on his neck. And then I remember he stumbled back up to the fence. He was winded. And he was talking about the Cowboys are coming. Y'all are going to pay. He gets on the phone. Well, he didn't get on the phone at first. And then these two guys in trucks pull up. And I didn't see the two guys. Like, I'm so full of adrenaline. I don't even know what's happening. I'm just this. But I remember he's yelling, the Cowboys are coming and y'all are going to pay. And if that's not a threat, I don't know what is. You know, you've already been swinging punches and attacking us, and now you say, well, y'all are going to pay. And I remember Jesse asked me for my gun, because I had a gun. And I thought earlier in this thing, when he was punching on Jesse, I thought about pulling my gun out. And the only reason I didn't, well, it was twofold. One, I didn't consider myself a good enough shot to shoot him without shooting someone else. And two, I didn't really want to kill him. And I figured, you know, try to get him off without that. But I remember Jesse just took my gun and he held it. And then he gave it back to me. And then he told me and Bethany, y'all walk. Y'all just get out of here, go walk. So I remember me and Bethany start walking off the road, and I'm kind of looking back like, I hope they get out of there. And we're walking up, and I remember they pulled up a little while later, and Jesse said, guys, you need to get in the car. It's not safe here. Like, those guys are probably going to come after us. You know, we've called the police, they're coming, but we need to get in the car and get somewhere safe. So we got in the car, and Jesse was on the phone with the 911 lady, telling her what happened, and I remember her saying, like, if you don't feel safe there, you just need to leave. And so remember, he told her, we're going to go up to mile marker, I don't remember if it was like 32 or 37, it was 30-something maybe, and we'll wait. We'll wait, you know. And so we go up to the mile marker, and we're waiting, and pretty soon a cop car shows up coming down the road with their lights on. And I remember they stopped behind us, and at this point I'm thinking, okay, crazy guys attacked us, we've had to defend ourselves. He's called the cops, we've called the cops are going to come and ask questions. I mean, it's reasonable. They're going to come and ask questions, we're going to tell them what happens. We'll keep walking, we're going to get our afternoon coffee. That's literally what I thought, is we're going to answer questions, they're going to, okay, you defended yourself, this crazy guy attacked you, you weren't on his property, okay, go get your afternoon coffee. Well, then more cars show up, and pretty soon they've got traffic blocked off. And I remember when they yelled really loud and they told Jesse to drop his keys out the window. I remember that was when I was thinking, this is bad.
Not getting that afternoon coffee.
This is not going to be just like some questioning. And I remember that was the last one out of the car. And I remember Jesse getting out, and I remember them telling him, hands on your head, back up the sound of my voice, 3 steps to the left, on your knees. And I'm not even looking back at this point. I don't want to flinch. And then Eric gets out of the car. And then Bethany gets out of the car, and then Josiah. And then they call my name, and I get out there, and they pull me out of the car, and they say, lift up your waistband. And I lift up my coat, my pistol's on there, and it's instantly like 3 or 4 voices, hands on your head, hands on your head. And I stick my hands on my head, and I'm like, these guys, if I slip on the ice, they're going to kill me. If I slip on the ice, I'm dead. And they're back up the sound of my voice, and I'm just backing up as slowly as I can, trying not to slip on the road. And they say 3 steps left on your knees. And as soon as I get on my knees, I can feel 2 or 3 guys they've got my arms. They're like on me. I feel something pressing into the back of my neck. I don't know what was. And then I feel my gun get taken. And then they didn't even, like, I'm not a big dude. And, like, they literally didn't even handcuff me like this. They were so, I don't know if scared is the right word, probably, that they literally handcuffed me like this. And they pulled me up, and they're walking me back to the car. And the car's like, I don't know why they handcuffed you like that. That's pretty stupid. And so he walks me back over to the car, and I'm like, it's like hurting. He's like holding me like this, like, yeah, you know. And he walks back and he's like, no, you're not going to give me any trouble if I change these handcuffs. And I'm like, no. I've done nothing wrong. Why would I give you trouble? You know? Because at this point, I'm thinking, the cop is your friend. You've defended yourself. I just helped my future father-in-law get out from under a raging maniac. You know? So he re-handcuffs me back here. And then I remember he took off his glasses. And he was like, what just happened? And so I remember I told him we were parked here. This guy came. He was screaming. You know, I just told him what happened. Everything. Because at this point I'm thinking, you know, I've got nothing to hide. I'll be honest. So I just told him everything. Well, then he leaves. And at this point, I'm not even seeing. I can kind of see Jesse over at another car getting talked to. But I don't know where Bethany is. I don't know where Eric is. Josiah is. Nobody. And then this other guy, this police officer, comes and talks to me. And I told him everything that happens. And then I remember that all the officers kind of disappear for a while. And it's only this police officer that's standing with me, okay? And he was making small talk, and I remember him saying, this isn't a big deal, it'll be resolved, you know. But that's what I thought. Yeah, this isn't a big deal. I don't know why you just stopped us and handcuffed us. You could have just, you know, pulled up and asked us questions. But I remember him telling me, it's not going to be a big deal, you know, it'll be resolved, it's, you know, whatever. Well, then I remember the officer, the first guy that talks to me, comes up and he goes, Carter, you ever been arrested before? And I said, no, sir. And he said, well, you are now, because 4 people can't beat up some old man. Or old codger, whatever he said. And I'm thinking, 1, like, this guy wasn't, like, old and frail. 2, we didn't beat him up. Like, I don't remember him being hurt. I mean, it took all of us to get him off of Jesse. He's beating him. Like, in my mind, that's not beating somebody up.
Right.
And I remember he sticks the belly belt thing on me and brings my hands down, whatever. And he marches me over to the cop car, and him and the other officer sitting there, and he laughs and he says, isn't this funny? Family walking across America together gets to go to jail together. And they laughed and they put me in the car and slammed the door. And then I remember them talking about, right before the dinner, them talking about who was going to take Josiah. And then they put me in the car, the guy got in, and we take off for the sheriff's office. I remember asking the officer in the car, because I'm wondering, like, what am I charged with? Because I didn't even know. They didn't tell me. It's just, oh, you're arrested, blah, get in the car. So I'm like, what am I charged with? And he says, aggravated assault. And I don't even know what that means. Like, really, like, are you saying because a guy punches me and I punch him back that it's aggravated assault? You saying that because a guy is beating on my father-in-law and I hit him to get him off, that's like, well, then I asked him, well, what does that mean? Because, I mean, you could tell me, I've never been in trouble. Well, I asked him, and he just says, well, the maximum was 20 years in prison and $50,000 fines. And I remember in that car thinking, what in the world? And I'm not going to lie, like, I literally entered my mind, and I'm not joking, like, it entered my mind in that cop car, these guys might take us out behind the house and put us on our knees and shoot us all. Like, I literally thought that. I'm thinking these guys could literally just take us and shoot us. And I was just praying, like, you know, Lord have mercy, what has just happened? And we end up in this little sheriff's office. It's like the size of this garage, maybe. And I remember they put me and Eric and Jesse in this little holding cell, and Bethany's outside. And at that point, my mind is like, what are they doing to Bethany? What is going on out there? And I'm like, serious, like, I would have, like, if they had laid a finger on her, I would have got myself killed. Like, easily. Mm-hmm. But I remember they brought me out there, and they're, like, fingerprinting me, and they're getting my picture, they're asking me my address, where I work. And I remember the guy tried to, and at this point, like, I'm thinking, there's got to be a resolution to this. Something's got to be wrong. Like, they have to have some wrong information somewhere. Like, I'm expecting, because I haven't seen, like, a real county sheriff. At this point, I'm thinking, someone's going to walk in here and say something, and they're going to let us go. And that's what I thought. Like, yeah, like, I literally was thinking, like, we have to be able to reason with these guys. There's got to be some way. And I remember Jesse talking to the guy who laughed about me getting arrested, and I remember the guy saying, oh, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. You just need to take it up to the judge. I've made my decision. There's nothing you can do. Which is pretty stupid. If you're the guy that arrested me, you should be, But I remember they're trying to book me for jail, and the guy couldn't get the system figured out. And the other guy's like, no, you just do it like this. And he's like typing with one finger, trying to put me in the system, and doesn't know what he's doing. And like, the guy was like when I worked at the Boys Ministry, I did a background check with the state of Missouri. It's required. Like, I've done fingerprints before. And like, it's not very hard to get a fingerprint. Like, I can literally do my own fingerprints. And he's like, no, you can't do your own fingerprints. We gotta like, he's like, got my fingers like smashing it on the thing and rolling it. And it's just like, and I mean, it was almost comical. It wasn't. And I remember that I was trying to stay lighthearted because I do that. And I asked the officer in the police room, are all handcuffs the same? Is there like standard issue? Is there? And it was just like, I've got to do something to stay sane in this situation. I'm going to ask about the handcuffs. And I have like these pink handcuffs. And I'm like, and he had some answer. Like, well, not really, but there's different types and whatever. I don't know.
Should ask him if it's just his that are pink.
I don't know, but and I remember them asking me, they're going to fingerprint me. They're like, well, we understand this is your girlfriend, so you're not going to do anything stupid in here, are you? And I'm kind of like, no. But anyway, then they get us all done, and they put me and Jesse in the back of this car, and this lady cop gets in there. And the only nice thing, I don't even know if I call it nice, but the only gesture of even a tiny bit of conscience that came out of these guys was when I asked when I was leaving, when they were marching me out, I asked, can I give Bethany a hug? And they're like, yeah, I guess. And so I did. And then I got out of there, we get in the cop car, we're driving down the highway, and we had to go to where they had the car. And the officer that arrested us, he told Jesse, if you don't give me permission, I can't just like dig in your car and take your cross out and your flag and whatever. But if you'll give me permission, I promise that this will go faster and you'll get out of this faster and it'll all go away faster. If you'll just let me get in your car, that way I don't have to get a search warrant, Anyway, and I remember this time thinking, well, if it'll make it go away faster and make this, justice be served. Okay, so we go to the car, and I remember that Jesse and the officer are out there, and I remember that I just broke down in the back of that cop car. And I remember praying several different things. I remember praying, one, that God will keep Bethany safe. I remember just praying for mercy, praying for deliverance. And I remember vividly praying that we hadn't hurt the man very bad. I didn't think we had, but I just remember praying, I hope that we didn't hurt him very bad. I don't think we did. And I just prayed for deliverance. I was just crying out, Lord, like, how is this happening? Like, how did my afternoon coffee turn into this? Remember, they take us to Bozeman to the jail, and they bring us in there, And I remember, my thinking, I'm still trying to stay positive because I don't really do negative. And so we're going to jail, and I'm thinking, well, we'll get to see the judge. Surely tomorrow, it was like Saturday, surely tomorrow we'll get to see the judge. And this will all get straightened out. The judge will just, this is stupid, you're released. And I remember we go into jail, and they, pat you down and put you in the scanner and give you prison clothes and, everything. And I remember asking for a Bible. I got a Bible. And they gave me a sandwich. And my head's just pounding. Pounding. They gave me this pretty gross sandwich and some stale chips. And they put me in this holding cell. And they gave me a blanket. And I remember one of the worst moments of my life was when Jesse and Bethany both walked out of the escorted by a guard. And went behind the door. And I'm thinking, am I ever going to see them again? And I remember thinking that in that cell. You're sitting there and you're alone. And I remember flipping to the Psalms and just reading until they came to give me my prison clothes. And they take me in the cell block and they say a number. They give me this basket and they're like cell 201D or something. And I go up there and I open the door and I sigh in relief because there's nobody in there. And I'm like, I don't want no cellmate. At least I thought at the time. And I remember I closed the door and I intercommed in and told them it was okay to turn the light off, and what time do you want me up in the morning? I'm thinking, like, surely we gotta get up in the morning. And they say, okay, and the light goes to dim. And it never goes off. And then I look around the room and I realize in my stupidity, there is no clock. I don't know what time it is. Like, if they told me 6, I can't wake up at 6 anyway. Like, and I'm getting my stuff out, and there's like a little orange silicone cup and a little glue stick with a pen cartridge through it. And a spork and some deodorant. And they won't give you a pillow. But I had 2 blankets, thankfully. And it's freezing cold in there. And I remember drinking some water. And I remember my outlook was, if this is going to happen, we're going to make the best of it. And so I did my nightly routine like I would anywhere else. I brushed my teeth, I read my Bible, crawled into bed. But I couldn't sleep. And I remember that entire night just tossing and turning, my head's just pounding, the light's not off. In and out of tears, in and out of prayers, just what is happening? And the longer that night went in, the more it set in. Like, I'm not getting out of here. Like, this isn't like no one's going to come open that door and say, hey, you're free to go. And I remember, like, finally the light comes on. Or it gets brighter. And you're standing up for roll call or whatever. And I'm still, like, I have no idea what anything is. Like, I don't understand anything. And so I remember I get up, and they bring, like, some kind of breakfast, and they open my little door and they shove it in. And I remember I intercom down, and I said, can I get a phone call? Because I'm thinking, in my mind, okay, if you go to jail, you should get a phone call. I should have been able to get a phone call at the sheriff's office. And they said, not until you're out. And that was the end of it. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, and I remember sitting in that cell all day long until about 2:30. Nobody came. They'd come put your meal in. And I read probably 20 or 30 Psalms. Because it was literally all I could do to stay sane. It would just, I'd read a Psalm, I'd cry and pray over it. Pray it. Then I'd read another one and I'd cry and pray it. And then about 2:30 they let us out into this bottom area. And all the guys around me are Hispanics. And they're kind of like in their corner. They don't really seem to even notice me. And I'm kind of like freaked out. Well, I go over to the bookshelf and I'm trying to find something of value. And I'm still thinking, like, surely we'll see a judge today. I've already been in here like 12 hours, you know. Well, I go over there and I'm flipping through the books, and this old guy comes up. And he just comes up and looks at me and he goes, welcome to hell, bud. And I remember I looked at him and I would have laughed, but it wasn't funny. Like, it was like, that's about right. But then I remember the Hispanic guys asked, well, why are you in here? I said, I'm just a Christian who defended myself. Like, we were just out doing missionary work and defending, and they're like, what? What do you mean? Like, I'm like, we were attacked and I defended myself. And they're just like, why are you in here? I'm like, because they put us in here. Like, I don't know why I'm in here. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then they lock us back up, and I'm locked up the rest of the day. And, night came, and there was no phone call, because I couldn't figure out how to work the phone. I could not, I rang it, they gave me, like, this little card, and you're supposed to, like, swipe. I couldn't figure it out. So I go back to my room, they lock you in, and another night of no sleep. And the next day, they let us out around breakfast time. I was out most of the day. And I think that day I got a phone call because I'm over there trying to work the phones. I can't figure it out. One of the guys on the lower cell block, like, you got the upper cells, which I was on, the lower cells, which Jesse was in, which I figured out that day. And I could, like, see him down there if I was locked up. There was this old black guy in there. And I remember he looked at me, he was banging on a cell door. And I look at him, and he was like motioning, come here. And so I'm like, okay. So I walk over there, and I remember he points to one of the Hispanic guys, and he says, that's Steve. He's yelling through his cell door because it's really hard to hear. And he said, you go tell Steve that I told him to get you a phone call. He'll get you a phone call. I go over to the Hispanics, I'm like, who's Steve? And this little Hispanic was like, I'm Steve. And I said, well, that guy just told me that you'd give me a phone call. And he was like, oh yeah, come here, I'll show you how to do it. He like walked me through the whole process, made sure I was on the phone, and then walked away. And I remember calling Daddy, and he cried and I cried, and he didn't know what was going on. He was trying to figure out, he didn't, are you going before a judge or not? Like, what is happening? Like, no one could figure anything out. And I remember hanging up feeling better but worse, if that makes sense. It was better. I mean, I've talked to my family, I've heard their voices, but worse, because it was just this, there was no hopeful outlook. Nobody knew what's happening. I don't really know, for all I know, I'm going to be in here for like the next year. But I remember I decided two things. I decided I'm going to be here. If I don't know when I'm going to get out, if I'm in here for a month and I waste my time, I'm going to be in trouble with God. If I don't serve God here somehow, be useful, and I felt so useless in jail. They won't let you do anything. They won't let you, and so I decided I'm going to be useful for God, and I'm going to write Bethany a letter a day. But I had no paper. So I did something kind of criminal. If, in a sense, you can't get charged for this, but I don't think. But I had no paper, and I asked the guard several times, can you please give me some notebook paper? Can I just have some paper? And they're like, yeah, well, I don't, maybe if I find some around. It was always this just kind of, not really, And so I'm going to the bookshelf, and they had all these books, like music for dummies, electrical for dummies, all these things for dummies. And I realized all the dummies books had big white pages at the beginning, like 3 or 4 or 5 white blank pages. They're not used. Like, you don't use them, they're useless. And so I was like, I'm taking the dummies books to my room. And I did. I picked up the dummies books. I go to my room. Guards might come around for another 20 minutes. I start ripping out pages. Every white blank piece. I just fold them in my Bible. And I journaled in jail, and I wrote letters to Bethany in jail. And I did. It was like but I was in jail for 5 days, and I read the entire book of Psalms and most of Proverbs in 5 days. And it was, looking back, like, that's crazy. Like, there's no way I could go read through the Psalms in like 5 days starting out. Absolutely. But I realized that it was because in that cell, I had nothing but Jesus. Nothing. I couldn't talk to Jesse. The guard told me if I did, he'd throw me in another jail pod. And I mean, I'm just now getting comfortable with my Hispanic friends, and so I don't want to get to, like, who knows who's going to go send me with, you know?
Right.
I mean, and so when all you have is Jesus, literally, you cling to Jesus. And I remember I went to the judge on like Tuesday. Finally, they're like, "Oh, you got court, Mr. Phillips. You need to, make sure you're dressed. You got your prison clothes and your hair's combed, whatever, And me's thinking, yeah, I want to look nice in court. So, brush my hair, wash my face, whatever. So I go to court. I'm sitting in this holding cell, and they give you this iPad with this like judge on a screen. It's like, you must be aware of your rights, blah 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 blah. Before we go send you in with a prosecutor or whatever. Well, I'm sitting in the cell, and it's like glass. There's a counter up here, and I see Bethany come walking in the room. And my first inclination is just to yell, but I'm like, they're probably not gonna like that. This could not be good. So I'm like, why not? I can sing. So I started singing "Come Thou Fountain" at the top of my lungs, and she never ever heard it. But I sang for like 5 minutes.
Bummer.
I sang for like 5 straight minutes. I'm just singing. I'm like, maybe. I know though that Jesse heard me because I would sing in the cell block. The Mexicans would yell back and forth Spanish, and it was really annoying. And so I would just sing. I sang psalms. I sang hymns. I sang like every song I could remember.
Did you ever get a chance to minister to the Hispanics?
I did actually. There was the guy Steve was in his Bible reading it and claimed to have found Jesus and wanted to get his life back on track. And I remember him talking on the phone with his wife and telling her, "Look, I know that so many times I've told you it's going to be different, but this time it is going to be different. Like, I'm not the same person anymore. We're actually going to go to church, and we're actually going to follow God, and we're going to." And so I talked to him a lot. There was a guy from Colombia in there, like an illegal immigrant that was locked up, getting ready to be deported, I guess. Spoke really bad English, and my Spanish is so little that it was so pretty much Steve, the guy, would translate for us, and we would play chess. And so in the middle of chess, I'd be having Steve translate. I'd be talking about the gospel, and then the old guy who told me "Welcome to Hell." He was in his 60s, and he's been in and out of prison since he was like a teenager.
Oh, so he's a
crackhead, can't stay off crack, and he grew up in church, and just left it all. And I remember telling him because he told me we were playing chess, and he told me, I'm gonna get out tomorrow, but I'll probably be back in because I just can't stay off the crack. And I remember telling him, I said, "Look, Jesus can keep you off the crack. I can promise you that." But he left the next day, and I don't know what happened to him, but that encouraged me, being able to witness the guy's jail, because then it was like, okay, Lord, you have a use for me. I'm not done. Because it's tempting when you're in a cell and you've been locked and you've only been let out for like 2 hours a day. You're in solitary confinement. It's pretty tempting to think my purpose here is done. I'm literally a useless vegetable. But that encouraged me. And I remember I went to court. I get up there, and the prosecutor, they, say the charge, aggravated assault. Do you plead guilty, not guilty? And I'm like, not guilty. And then the prosecutor says, we, the state, because these guys are travelers and they're vagabonds, we advise that they wear ankle monitors. There's been threats against this guy, all this stuff. $50,000 bond. And I remember I spoke up, and I said, well, Judge, I don't have a record or anything. I want to be let out on my own recognizance. I want to be let out free, on my own terms, that I'll come back to court and whatever. And the judge kind of looked at me, and he was like, no, $50,000 is good, ankle monitor is good. Okay, bye. And he didn't have my name straight. He called me Carter Noland. It's Norman Phillips, and they thought I was, they had the paper, they thought I was Jesse for a minute, and he was like, wait, this isn't Mr. Boyd? Oh, I just had Mr. Boyd. Well, no, this is Mr. Phillips. And their court paperwork was wrong. Well, I come back in the cell, and all the Hispanics were like, oh, Carter, how'd your court go? And I said, well, they set bail at $50,000. And they got like 500? 500, you're getting out? I'm like, no, guys. 50,000. And all the Hispanics, they're like talking to each other. Hispanics like, 5,000? I'm like, no, guys, English, $50,000. And they looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, why? How? How's that possible? And I remember that I told my dad that these people were wicked and that we were going to need a matlock on the phone. And I remember I went up to my room and I got in my Psalms and I found every imprecatory psalm and I just started praying. Because it changed this from, it was changing from this desperation, crying for deliverance, to a desperation but crying for God to have justice.
Mm.
And then I remember coming out of the jail, I got news, I talked to my dad, I got news Eric was released. And I remember in jail, my dad was talking to me, he said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just warning you that they might try to impose some order where you can't talk to each other. And that was genuine fear, but I remember talking to him again the day I was released, and he said, no, there's no such order in place. You know, I figured out that's not a thing. And that was a great relief. I'm like, you're not going to tell me that I can't talk to my brother-in-law, and I can't talk to the girl I'm about to get engaged to, and I can't talk to her father. Not going to happen. But he told me that's not a thing. And so, I remember getting out of jail. I was waiting for it. I knew this is the day, Wednesday. It's going to happen. And so I decided, I'm a Christian. This cell's going to be cleaner than anyone else's when I leave. Like, I'm going to leave a good testimony for these guards. Like, they should not. So I swept it. I sprayed down the toilet because they had cleaning supplies in the little closet. And I like made up my blankets. And I made like a spick as span as it's probably ever been. And I sit there. And I'm like sitting there. And eventually I remember this older guard, he comes in there and he said, hey, Mr. Phillips, get your stuff. I'm kicking you out of here. I remember I got my stuff and he opened the door and I walked out and they said, everything that's yours, take with you. Everything that's not, dump in this basket. And so I clutched all my letters, my journal entries, and I put all the jail stuff in the basket and I went. And they gave me all my clothes back. They gave me my empty holster. They didn't give me back my gun, but, you know. And I remember I went and changed clothes, and then there was this guy putting on these ankle monitors. And I'm thinking, this is insane. This is what you do to pedophiles.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you do to sex offenders. Like, you're telling me because I defended myself, you're going to put a lunken piece of GPS. Like, if my phone can track me, it is really sad that something has to be this big to track you. It just is.
That's a good point.
It's like a camera battery that's like...
One AirTag, too, is like...
Yeah, it's like one AirTag, like this big, you know? If the police can find you when you call 911 on your iPhone, then they shouldn't have to strap a, like, massive thing of a camera battery that has to be replaced every 12 hours. I mean, anyway, well, they're putting it on me, and they can't, like, get it right. And so the guy's like, well, you're going to have to come down to our office. We'll get them all put on. But I remember, like, one of the best moments in my life was walking out, like, all the little bond, like, the release doors. It's like you walk in one door and it closes behind you and they open another. And I'm just, at this point, I'm thinking, like, this better not be, like, a scam. Like, I better be getting out of here. Because I'm afraid at any minute they're like, no, you're not released. The 30
just
seconds.
kidding.
Like, you know, just kidding. We're 30. I don't mean it's a legitimate fear. I'm like, I want to be out of, because I haven't seen, like, the sun, the sky, nothing for like 5 days. I'm like, I have got to get out of here. And so I remember the door opens and it's like Jesse and Eric and Bethany are standing there. And that was like one of the best moments of my life. Mm. And that afternoon, like, I went and got a coffee at a coffee shop, and I was like, "There's snow on the ground.
Finally,
there's
finally
like
got
the
the
sky.
coffee.
There's freedom." And
it's a good coffee, I bet.
It was a wonderful coffee. Coffee in jail was awful. It was like instant. You have to mix it in a sink.
Some guys will take a piece of toilet paper and put the instant on it, roll it up, and then put it in their mouth like chew.
Might have been better. I mean, it was. They gave you like great stuff. The food was awful.
Yeah.
Like awful. And I mean, that was kind of it for the initial experience.
So then what happened after that?
So after that, we went back to this lady's house we were staying with in Bozeman, and we're trying to figure out. At this point, I remember we're talking to this guy that I didn't know existed, this guy named John Lamb, who was like an angel, just appears out of nowhere. And it's like, this man, like, I remember my dad talking to me on the phone in prison. He's like, yeah, there's this guy, John Lamb, that actually lives up there. He just helps people like this. He helps people with unjust charges. And, you know, he's helping get y'all, like, he's helping get y'all out, like, everything. And I'm like, I'm imagining a guy in a suit. You know, because I'm just thinking, if you're, you know, helping, like, I'm imagining some, like, you know, shaved up lawyer in a suit. And I walk out and there's just this big, tall guy in a massive beard. He's like, I'm John Lamb. I'm like, interesting. This is different. But we got, and we were just trying to figure out what happened. And so we're all kind of like, because, you know, you don't see every part of the story together.
Right.
I mean, we all saw the same thing. Even the police said all our stories are the same. But, you know, you're like, okay, what happened? You know, we're sharing our jail experience with each other. I gave Bethany all her letters I wrote her in jail. And I remember Josiah brought up, we're just like sitting in the living room, this lady's house. And Josiah's like, yeah, they took me to that guy's fly shop. And we're like, what? He's like, yeah, I was in the back of the cop car and they drove up to the guy's. I know it was his place because it was his truck. And left me in the cop car for like an hour. And we're like, something's wrong with that. That's wicked. You took this kid back to the place where this guy who just attacked us. And so, I mean, we're like slowly figuring this stuff out. Like, I wouldn't know the name of the guy that attacked us unless it was on like my bail release, do not contact order, you know, whatever. I wouldn't know. And I remember we drove up with John Lamb up to Kalispell area to meet with these lawyers that wanted to take on the case and said they were going to help us and it was all going to get dropped. And at this point, like, we don't know what to do. We've never been in trouble. We don't know if this is, you know, you think that false charges, totally unjust, stupid, it'll just go away. They'll drop it. You know, you think like the prosecutor, the judge was looking at that, oh yeah, well they said they were defending themselves. No major injuries, they were defending themselves, so yeah, bye. But nope, not Madison County. So we drive to this lawyers and they seem, you know, they're going to take our case, they're going to, you know. So we're like, okay, let's just get that over with, because we don't know what's, you know. So we get these lawyers, and I remember we wrestled with, because our next hearing was like in a few weeks. It's, you know, do we drive all the way back home? Or do we stay? And the thought was, well, if we stay, maybe they'll just drop us. Maybe we'll go in this hearing, we can just speak, we can tell the judge. But we decided we're going home. And I remember jail played, this whole thing has played a very pivotal part in like me and Bethany getting married when we did. Because so there had been this thing, like before the walk, where Jesse had told me that, you know, Bethany can get married when we finish the walk. And I was like, okay, you know, I'll wait till the end of the walk, you know. But after jail, it was like, wait a minute. All of life has just gone down the sinkhole. Like, it's not, you know, this isn't, I don't even know what tomorrow holds. They might stick us in jail for 20 years. I mean, so I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work out very well. And so I remember we get back, we came to Missouri to my parents, and Jesse and Eric and Bethany were going to head back to North Carolina. And so I took Bethany out to see our school bus, which we live in, which at the time was there. I think there was one kitchen cabinet in it. The bed might have been in it. There was a toilet. Like, it was pretty much framing and insulation in an old yellow school bus. I took her out there to see it, and I proposed to her in there. Because I figured there's nowhere around that's like memorable that I'm probably going to come back to. And if I propose to her here, in like what will be the kitchen, we'll just always have it. And I'm not letting her go to North Carolina without proposing. It's just not going to happen. So I did that, and then they left. And I went back to work at the grain elevator. At this time, I'd quit working at the boys ministry earlier in that year. I still work for them. I do web design for them and communications and stuff. So I'm still employed there. But I left that place like a few months before all this happened. And that was an experience because a year before that, I'd wanted to leave that place. And I decided, I'm going to leave. And then God was like, no, you're not. You're going to learn to be content right where you're at. If it's the cotton fields and flat and the boys. And so I stayed another year. And then when I did leave, it was very obvious, I've got to get out of here. And I couldn't explain it. I remember talking to the guy, my boss at the boys ministry, and he asked me, you know, are there any problems here you don't like? Are there any doctrinal? He's trying to figure out why you know, is there some underlying issue you're not telling me? And I remember telling him, I said, no, I love this place. This is like a second home to me. But the Lord is telling me, like Abraham, get up and go where you don't know you're going to go. Just go. And he said, you know what? I'm not going to argue with the Holy Spirit. You've got my full blessing. So I left there. So I go back to work at the Grand Elevator, and I'm thinking, yeah, these charges will get dropped.
And you're still wearing the ankle monitor at this
Yeah,
point.
I'm still wearing the ankle monitor, and I'm like switching the batteries out, and you know, it'll get low, and it'll be like, oh, what did it do? Like beep, you go beep beep, beep beep, low battery.
And did you have to foot the bill for that?
Yes.
Of course.
And so I want to say it was $11 a day, I think, or maybe it was something outrageous, absolutely outrageous. And thankfully it's winter, so I'm not walking around in shorts and everybody's like, oh, look at the sex offender. It's like, you know, it's like, but I'm at work, and I remember the first week I was pretty lighthearted because I'm free. I'm not in jail. I'm engaged. I've got a million things to be thankful for. I've got to get this bus done and get married, and but about a weekend of work, it started setting in. Just all the memories and all the, because like you get over it. Like I'm over it, but then all the memories of getting pulled out of that cop car and the jail and the getting held at gunpoint, all this stuff, that starts coming back. And I remember it seemed at that time there was a few weeks there where it seemed in my mind, this is never going to go away. I'm going to jail, and I'm probably never going to get married. I mean, it was just like and I remember this night at work, and thankfully my work was with believers. All my coworkers were believers, and they were encouraging me. And this night I was working late, and I remember my coworker came by. It was getting dark. It was when I was sweeping out this building. And he came by and he just said, I'm not going to ask how you're doing, but I'm praying for you. And he drove away, and I remember that I put that broom down and I just broke down. And it was like I was letting it out. It was just like, I cannot handle this. I cannot handle the thoughts, the fears, the emotions, the memories. I can't do it. And there's been moments like that since then. For the last 2 years, where I get to a point where I cannot, and what happens is you try to carry it on your own, and I get all these in my mind, oh, this is going to happen, and this is happening, and it'll get dropped, but it doesn't work out that way, and then I always come back to that place where, no, this is not my problem, this is God's battle to fight.
You almost become a conspiracy theorist with your own life.
Yes, like I'm bad, I'll sit there and I'll think of like, yeah, this could happen, this could happen, and this could happen, and that could happen. And pretty soon I've made up like the next 5 years of my life in detail.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, this is stupid. This is just my mind going down all the different paths and scenarios. But that winter, I remember I was building the bus like crazy. And I remember that I decided, I'm like, okay, this court stuff's going on. I don't even know, like we might all get thrown in jail. I don't even know if the walk's going to get finished. And I'm engaged, and I want to get married. So I penned a very long letter to Jesse that I prayed over for a few weeks. And I thought, I'm like, should I even do this? Is this even a good idea? Or like, should I? But you know, it's like, what do I have to lose? So I'm like, I pin it up, and I like stress over the grammar about like 15 times. And then I remember it was basically just a respectful asking, let's just withdraw from this thing about the walk. I mean, that was my whole thing. I was like, look, I'll come finish the walk with you later if I need to. If Bethany's committed to it. You know, whatever that happens, God will provide. I remember I put it in the mailbox, and I was like, okay, God, we'll see where this goes. And then I just kept, and like Christmas, I just worked on my bus like crazy. Like, it was like, I made money, I put it in the bus. Christmas Eve, I was building doors in my bus. Like, and then I drove home to be with my family, and then Christmas afternoon, I built a countertop, and it was just... But then we had, like, this arraignment. Well, okay, so then the charges got, like, recharged or something. So, it's around January, and I figure out we're having a completely new arraignment now. So apparently what I did is back there when they're like, you know, ankle monitors, do you plead guilty or not? Well, apparently that's not even valid, because I get new documents in the mail from Montana. It's like, you are now charged with... So now I guess aggravated assault wasn't good enough, so they threw it out. It's like, you are now charged with assault with a weapon. And I'm like, so a 3-foot, like, 1.5 pound wooden cross is a weapon? And then it has like all these stuff in there. It's got these police, whatever. The only thing on these police reports is like Mr. Phillips admitted to hitting Mr. Terrell with a cross. And I'm like, well, of course, he was my father-in-law beating him in the snow. Like, what do you expect me to do? And then it had like these little like things, eyewitness accounts, and it was like this one guy's like, I saw 7 people beating up one man in the snow, and it was like no, they didn't even make sense. I don't even know what was like happening. It was like, what is this? Is this a joke? Like, is this literally just like a joke? Like, you're literally telling me like this guy says he saw 7 people beat someone up in the snow, so he really couldn't tell how they were like. Like, it's like you look at the eyewitness accounts, you're like, were there 3 of us? Were there 4 of us? Were there 7 of us? Were there 15? Were like all of us guys? Because they never mentioned a girl. Like, I'm like, if you couldn't tell that, you really couldn't tell who was attacking who.
Eyewitnesses are notoriously unreliable.
I mean, it's like yeah, we were looking for elk, and there were 7 people out there, and it's like, actually, no.
Well, you'll get 7 people, and 7 people will tell you they were blonde hair, red hair.
Mm-hmm. But I remember after that, Jesse called me, and he just said, well, look, take comfort in one thing, and that is they've dropped Eric to a misdemeanor. And I took comfort in that. I thought, you know what, they're dropping Eric, this is a good sign. Well, then a while later, I remember I get this news that the AG is going to help out on the case. And I don't even know what that means. Like, when I hear, the Attorney General is going to look at the case, I'm thinking, yay, like the Attorney General's going to look at the case, be like, this is crap, bye. But then it's like the Attorney General gets hold of the case and Eric's all of a sudden back up to a felony. This time it's like assault with accountability or some crap, or like, what is that? Something that I don't even know if they charge anybody with, but, Christian missionary, whatever, we'll charge him. And I remember then, it was like some, I don't know if it was a group text or some different people, but I remember sending, I think it was Psalms 55. One of those Psalms were talking about the wicked perishing in their own traps and God squishing them like a little bug. And I sent it was just like, guys, this is what we need to be thinking, Brad. Like, this is my reaction to this. Is like, these wicked devils, and that's what they are, God needs to destroy them. Save them or destroy them. And like, I'll be honest, if all these cops that mistreated us and falsely arrested us, if they would repent, if they would publicly acknowledge that they were wrong, and they would repent of their wrongdoing, I'd sit with them like this. I'd sit and drink coffee with them. If old Thor and Geist got right with God and repented and dropped their charges and publicly acknowledged the wrongdoing, I'd sit and have coffee with them. I don't hate the guy that attacked us. I mean, he's wicked. You pull up on a bunch of Christians and say, you're not welcome here, and you attack us, you're doing wrong. If you're cops and because afterwards, see, you don't know, when you're just arrested, you're in jail, you don't know what the cops said to each other. But later on, I'm realizing, like, wait a minute, this stuff's on YouTube. Like, I don't even remember how I found it, but I'm like, wait, because I saw it on Facebook, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is on YouTube? Like, we're on YouTube. The footage is on YouTube. And so, I'm like, I gotta go see this. So I go there. I don't know if it was Facebook or YouTube, whatever it was. I find these videos. And one, I'm seeing them with their guns drawn on Josiah. And that's enough to make my blood boil. And then, secondly, I'm seeing them in a circle being like, well, the effing evangelists, yeah, they're just effing evangelists. We need to send a GD kid to CPS. We're just, I'm seeing them on there saying, well, we should call an ambulance. And the other guy's like, no, he doesn't need one, he's fine. And it's like, yeah, but it'll make our case stronger. I'm seeing this stuff on there, and I'm like, this wasn't, because for a while I was like, well, maybe they just had some misunderstanding, and they thought, maybe, possibly, but I realized, like, no, this wasn't even like some misunderstanding. This was blatant. We know what you did was right and lawful. We don't care, because Mr. So-and-so is our friend. I mean, he said it, I'm friends with the sheriff, we're buddies with so-and-so. We can't, make him look bad, put him in jail, because he's our friend. We know what you did was right and lawful, but you're Christian missionaries, you're out-of-staters, you're poking your nose where it shouldn't be, jail. That's what that was. Those cops weren't good cops making a bad decision. This was like, we're going to get in a circle. And it wasn't, they didn't get in a circle and decide objectively, should we send these guys to jail or not? You know, I can see officers after, talking to people, okay, so-and-so said this, so, do we think this actually, are they actually dangerous people? This was like, we're putting these guys in jail, what can we charge them with that we can make stick? I mean, the one guy's like, well, yeah, aggravated assault, and the other guys are like, well, don't we need like a bodily injury for that statute, or is that going to work? And it's like, yeah, well, the guy had a bloody nose, so that's injury, so we send our ambulance to make our case stronger. But it was obvious, they decided to send us to jail without an investigation. There was no investigation. I mean, you go watch the footage, they go into the guy's house, and it's like, oh yeah, I see him outnumbered, the cops are going to see him outnumbered, y'all don't have any guns, laughs, they all laugh. Mr. Dude that attacked us and his buddies are tripping out, correcting each other's stories. They tell about two different stories. He admits that he had Jesse down in the snow, beating the blankety blank out of him. He got out of his truck, pissed off, didn't know what he was going to do. That should have been enough to be like, yep, they're innocent. But, I mean, there was no investigation. I mean, and I could prove it by when Jesse had my gun, he went to cock it. And if I'm going to carry for self-defense, I carry with a round in the chamber. And I've got an old SIG that has no safety, so I've just made up in my mind, if I'm going to draw, I'm going to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way of my dad taught me. If you're going to carry a gun for self-defense, and you're not willing to draw and shoot someone to defend yourself or your family, you shouldn't have the gun.
No, never
anyway,
pull unless you're going to pull.
Well, he writes back, it gets jammed. So when he hands it back to me, I get it unjammed, and the shell falls in the snow. Well, no one ever found the shell. And I'm like, the snow, it's not like the snow was 5 feet deep. It's like a foot deep. So you're telling me you conducted an investigation. It's like you didn't find a nice little brass 9mm bullet in the snow by my footprints?
You'd think they'd want that.
Yeah, wouldn't you walk it? Wouldn't you look around? Wouldn't you, take photos and, I mean, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's like the only word for it. And that's, you go into that situation and the cops are going to be good, blah, 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 blah. And pretty soon you're like, these cops are from the pit of hell. Like, these cops are literally wicked devils that hate us. And then pretty soon, you can't help but come to the conclusion, you know what? This old assistant AG is a wicked devil from hell that hates us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we got the ankle monitors off, but not before. And I got to take a drink of water, but one of the things that proves we're not dangerous criminals is that my ankle monitor stopped working. Like, it crashed, malfunctioned, like the batteries wouldn't charge, and I kept trying to like baby it along, get the battery, carry a charged battery in my pocket. Well, eventually I get a call from the company that like gave us the ankle monitors. And they're like, hey, where are you? We haven't been able to like track you for like 2 days. And I'm like, so I'm so dangerous that I've got to wear this thing, but you haven't seen me in 2 days, and the court doesn't even know it. This company's like, hey, what's going on, Mr. Phillips? Because we're just worried, like, did your thing break? Like, we haven't been able to find you for a few days. And I'm like, okay, if I was dangerous, like, you really think some sex offender walking around, his ankle monitor goes off for 2 or 3 days? The police or the court will call him, or come just grab him off the street. The company that provided the ankle monitor is not going to call Mr. Sexton. We're like, hey, Mr. Guy, we haven't been able to find you for the last week, so we're just worried, maybe your thing might have malfunctioned. And I just told her, yeah, it's being funny, it's breaking. And I'm like, I don't know if, there's somewhere around here. Like, I'm in Missouri. Like, is there somewhere? And she's like, no, that you can't go anywhere there and get one. And I'm like, well, I'm not coming back to Montana for one. And the lady on the phone's like, well, I can send you one. And I'll just show you, I'll just walk you through putting it on, and you can cut the old one off and ship it back to me. And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, wait a minute. So you're going to tell me that I am such a dangerous individual. I'm such a flight risk, and I'm going to, go be violent and attack people, that I've got to wear an ankle monitor. But I'm so trustworthy that you can send me one in the mail with the tool to, like, take on and put them on, and you just trust that I'm going to put it on my leg and not a cow. And I talked to my boss, I'm like, we can put this on a cow. And they'd be like walking around the field, and they'd be like, what in the world? Like, Carter's just been living in the field for like a week. And I was like, or we can put it on the stop sign in town, where I can go change the battery every day, But no, like I'm a Christian, I'm honest. I'm not gonna lie. You know, if it's injustice, just like 1 Corinthians 4, if it's persecution, I'm gonna suffer it. You know, if I'm defamed on a tree, I'm not gonna. There's a time to fight. There's a time to get the guns out and go out a blazing. But in that form of persecution, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be meek and I'm gonna suffer it, and go like lamb to the slaughter, whatever. So yeah, you know. So I got a video of it for proof. Cause I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I put on my own ankle monitor. I cut it off and raised my, put it in the box. I put on my own ankle monitor, and I told the lady on the phone. I said, you know, this is pretty stupid. And she laughed and agreed with me. She's like, I know. You know, it's not my fault. Well, so then I take the box back to the FedEx. She gives me an address. Well, the little ankle monitor I cut off of me isn't very happy with me because I cut it off. You know, she told me to. So it's beeping like every 5 minutes. Beep, beep, beep. So I walk into the FedEx office. There's a line. And I'm like, this is bad. This is not a bomb. I promise it's not a bomb. And I'm standing there in line and it goes, beep, beep, beep. And everybody's kind of like looking around and I'm like, not a bomb, not a bomb. And I like put it on the thing and I was like, bye. And I walked out of there and it was just, but it proves the ridiculousness and the stupidity of it. I mean, that's proof. Like, I'm such a trustworthy individual that you can trust me. It's like telling a colonel, hey, here's the handcuffs, put them on yourself while my eyes are blindfolded. Don't run away. You know, you are not going to tell a dangerous felon to handcuff themselves and walk themselves to the jail. No, you only trust someone to do that if you actually think they're trustworthy. And I'm not saying the court would have done this. You know, old AG would have been like, yeah, we'll slap 2 ankle monitors on you for double measure. Just put the other one on, you know. But it proves if you believe I'm trustworthy enough to put on an ankle monitor, then you should believe I'm trustworthy enough to tell you the truth when I say I'm defending myself. And if you don't think I'm trustworthy enough that I was telling the truth about what happened on November 12th, then you cannot logically trust me to put on my ankle monitor. And there's a nice word for it. It's called hypocrisy. And that's what this is. It is complete. It's all hypocrisy. It's the, you know, AG, we stand for justice, we stand for equality, we stand for the rights, you know. You're a defendant. We're going to protect your rights. So really? So you want to put me in jail for defending myself, which Montana law says I can do. And you're protecting my rights? Like last time I checked, you didn't give me my rights. Last time I checked, God gave me my rights. The AG of Montana does not get to decide what my rights are. He doesn't. The Constitution of the United States does not decide what my rights are. You know, it's interesting when the Constitution says, you know, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. It doesn't say the right of free speech which we, the government, gave you. No. The Declaration of Independence doesn't say we, the governing, you know, we, the lawyers, have decided that we should have this liberty. No, it's like we've decided that God gave us this liberty and we're going to claim it. And so, how dare the Attorney General's Office of Montana speak of protecting your rights, all the while they're trying to take away rights that they don't have the power to take and they don't have the power to give. You don't get the right as any government official to tell me I can't defend myself, to tell me I can't share the gospel. And like, I'll obey lawful government. If you tell me that it's illegal to steal, I'll obey it because the Bible says thou shalt not steal. If you tell me I can't murder, I won't murder, but how dare you murder the babies in the womb? More hypocrisy. You're going to tell me that I can't defend, you know, my father-in-law. And no wonder, because you won't defend the unborn. I mean, you know, we see how it is. You know, and so what's interesting, though, is I obeyed a just law in Montana on November 12th, which says I can defend myself. And who is the state to tell me that the guy who attacked us wasn't a danger? They weren't there. The cops weren't there. Like, you're going to tell me that you can read my mind and be like, actually, Carter, no, on November 12th, when this guy was on top of your father-in-law beating him, he actually wasn't a danger. When this guy was screaming in your face, you know, had you backed up against a truck, he actually wasn't a danger. You should have just had the self-control and the, you know, psychedelic ability to know that this guy actually wasn't a danger. He's just a big teddy bear. And it's like, no. I know what I saw. I know what I felt. You know, the cops out there, they said, oh, they all said they were in fear for their lives. Well, yeah, you're right. We were. And so you're like, so we said we were, and you're like, no, you actually weren't. No, you couldn't have been. And it's like, really? You know, if those cops were there and the guy rushed him around the front of the truck, he'd be dead. They would have shot him. And when the, other cops came around, he would have said, I was in fear for my life. And he ran around the truck, and I didn't know what he was going to do, so I shot him because he might have ran into me and tackled me and beat me to death. But when you're the Christian missionary, you're like, yeah. We tried to reason with him, and then when he actually got physical, we had to defend ourselves because we thought he might tackle us to the ground and try to beat us to death. And they're like, nope, assault by jail. And what it comes down to is good old Christian persecution. And here's the thing. The people persecuting us, they might not even know they're persecuting us, but they are. One of these little cops, he's corrupt and he's got his power, and he knows, my sheriff buddy tells me these guys are no good, let's send them to jail, and I'm corrupt and I'm evil, so let's send them to jail. He might not be thinking, oh yes, these are the Christians, I hate Christians, but it doesn't matter because their father, and I'm going to say there as in the cops and the AG and David Buechler and all those guys, they serve their father the devil. Just like you just told the Pharisees. And if you serve your father the devil, you will hate what the devil hates and you'll love what the devil loves. You don't have to be Albert Einstein to persecute Christians. You just have to be wicked. You don't have to be Hitler. You just have to be, if you're serving the devil, you'll do the devil's work. And these men are servants of the devil. And that's plain and simple. And I'm not going to make an apology for calling Thorngeist the devil. I hope he gets saved. I hope he comes to Christ. I hope he comes to salvation. He comes to salvation, I'll accept him as a brother in Christ. But until that time, he's a wicked devil. And if he doesn't repent, they're going to burn in the fires of hell. And I don't want to see him burn in the fires of hell. But if they choose the path, God's not going to be like, no, you chose to serve the devil, but I'm not going to let you serve the devil. No, you're like, I want to serve the devil. Okay, serve the devil destruction. And it may not come in our lifetime. It's easy in this situation. It's been almost 2 years. It's easy to be, where's justice? And you question, can I trust anybody? Can I trust my public defender? Can I trust the court? Can I trust the judge? Can I trust the jury? And at the end of the day, nope. I'm thankful for my public defender. I'm thankful for the work he does. But do I trust him? No. Do I trust the jury members who are going to pick? No. Do I trust the judge? No. But I trust Christ. And what I've told my public defender is that it doesn't matter what happens. You can send me to jail. You can put me on probation. You can, guilty sentence, whatever. You can shoot me, if you really want to. And they might have wanted to in Madison County. I don't know what stopped them from doing it. But you can't take me from Jesus. And at the end of the day, what happens here, in a way, does not matter. Whether I get guilty or not guilty, whenever trial comes, if it comes, and I say if because it's doubtful, it doesn't matter so much as what is my testimony through that. What is, these people may be wicked devils with their wicked devil glasses that cloud all their vision, but what are the coals of fire that I'm going to heap on their head? That's my concern. When they come and stand before judgment, I want my testimony to speak against them. And I want God to say, you saw the long-sufferingness, you saw the gentleness and the patience of this man you persecuted, and that goodness of God, you rejected it. The goodness of God leads men to repentance, and you saw the goodness in these believers that you were persecuting. You saw their mercy in how they handled this guy that attacked them. You saw their gentleness, their meekness with the corrupt police that arrested them. You saw their forbearance and patience in this prosecution, and you didn't take to thought one instant that there was something in that you needed, or something in that was good. You just brushed it off as the weak little Christians. But at the end of the day, long-suffering isn't weakness. And forbearance isn't weakness. The easiest thing to do in Montana on that day would have been to kill the guy that attacked us. who would have put an end to it faster than trying to pull them off. But we're Christians. We have mercy. We have forbearance. We're willing, and I've been willing to give people the benefit of the doubt in this case, but I'm not anymore. I'm not going to give you the benefit, and I'm definitely not going to I'm not going to suppose that you, as a lost person, will act like a Christian. You're just not going to. I'm not going to suppose that when a whole nation is wicked and we murder a baby, that you, just because you've got a badge, or just because you've got a lawyer, or just because you've got your little attorney general's pen, or you're the governor, doesn't mean you're righteous. And, little Christians sucking on the milk, want to scream all day, whether it's COVID or whether it's this, Romans 13, just, if you would just obey, you just, one, I have obeyed the law, but two, you forgot where Paul said, give honor to whom honor is due. The cops of Madison County are not due any honor or respect. Old Thor and Geist ain't due any honor or respect. I don't care your badge or your credentials or your college level or your suit, your title. It doesn't matter. If you haven't done something worthy of my respect or honor, you haven't done something in the sight of God that is righteous. What would have been righteous in the beginning of this for a prosecutor would have been to say, this is wrong, bye. Throw it out. What would have been righteous for those cops would have been to say, you defended yourself, you did what you should do, good for you. That's what citizens should do when people attack them, is defend themselves but show mercy. That's what you should, good job. You obeyed the law to the letter, go get your afternoon coffee. We'll take care of this maniac. But no. Because we live in a world that hates Christians, and we live in a world that persecutes Christians. And I personally am thankful for what happened 100%. And I say that with no reservations, whether we go to jail or not. Because it's made me a stronger Christian. It's given me way more opportunities to share the gospel. I wasn't going to share the gospel with guys in jail if I wasn't arrested.
They seemed like that was the highlight of it.
They were. Okay, the guys in jail were about 3 times nicer than the police officers. It's like the police officer's like, yeah, dirty Christian, get in jail. The little Hispanic guy that's in there for a DUI is like, what? You're not supposed to be in jail. You're a Christian. You're a peaceful guy. Like, you're not supposed to be here. But it just shows Christian persecution. And it strengthened me, it strengthened others, and it was a wake-up call. And I'm not going to say that it hasn't changed things. I'll say, I get, ever since then, anything that looks like a confrontation, I get way more nervous. I don't know why. It's awful, but it's like anything that even looks like a confrontation, I'll start shaking. Because I know what can go down.
I know what you mean. When I was living in this roach motel in Pennsylvania, I had some crackhead kick my door in off the hinges at 6 in the morning. And I was asleep. I heard rustling, but that was about it until the door just... And I just grabbed my knife off the table and I was like, you're dead. And I chased after him, but ever since then, and it was worse right afterwards. If somebody would knock on the door or something, I was up and my heart was pounding and I was ready to, I was ready to go. And it took a long time to kind of mellow out from that, but I still sleep pretty light.
Yeah. And
it's hard to forget that.
It's not something, it's not like, oh, freeze up, I can't do anything.
Right, it's your toast.
But it's that nervousness of, I know now, because I always had this question in my mind, even when I carried a gun, is when the times comes, am I going to be the guy that's willing, even maybe with a little hesitation, to jump into the fight? Or am I going to be the guy that freezes or flees? And I can say, I believe I'll be the guy that jumps in the fight because I've done it. And I will defend my brother, but it's still that nervous and that shaky. Anything that looks like a confrontation, not just because of past trauma or whatever, but also because I know now if I'll defend someone once, I'll do it again. And I'm going to do it.
So you say your knowledge of what your capabilities are have grown.
Well, my capabilities aren't much.
Well,
but
I think you're
here's
more
the
capable
thing,
than you think.
is if you try to kill me, if you try to kill someone I love, I will kill you, or I will die trying. And I don't have, I don't have the training that Jesse or Erica Bethany has. Like, I know how to punch and kick. I know a few grabs and holds and whatever. I took some somewhat decent taekwondo for a while, but it doesn't, to me, it comes down to, if you're going to try to kill me, or if you're going to hurt the people I love, I will rip your eyes out. Like, literally. I will. Like, I don't, like, it's, and I've made that decision. You're not going to, if you want to come kill me, you can kill me while I'm fighting you. But I'm not going to lay down and die. I'm just not going to do it. It's not going to happen. I'm claustrophobic. My brothers used to roll me up in rugs as kids. It was really mean, but they used to roll me, called picking a blanket, they roll you up in a rug, and then they'd, like, sit on you. And, like, you can't get out. And it's stupid, but, like, I don't like people on top of me. I don't like it. I don't like super tight spaces. And I learned at the boys' ministry. Because, you got a bunch of teenagers, guys get mad, you've got to restrain guys. I learned that everybody I've tangled with, I've subdued. Not because I'm strong or whatever. Just because when someone gets on top of me, my adrenaline kicks in and I'll treat you like an enemy before I even realize you're my friend. And I remember tumbling with a guy in the boys' ministry, and he got on top of me and he was picking on me, and he grabbed me by the throat, and I slammed him against the locker and threw him over a chair and put him in an armbar, and was like very, very, like, not good. And then I was like, wait a minute, you're not actually trying to kill me. Like, but he did it from time to time, and it was like every time it's like you just needed not, like, but like, the guy that attacked us could probably kill me with his bare hands. He's probably 280 pounds. Like, yeah, he could probably kill me with his bare hands. But I would make it as hard as possible. But it's just, I don't even know where I'm going with that. But, since that incident, there is some more confidence. But there's also more apprehension of you know where this goes. It's more of a calculated decision now. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, now, I don't know if I'd actually think anything more about it because stuff happens so fast. You just act.
Right.
But I feel like it'd be a little more calculated. If I was standing where Jesse was standing when he ran around the truck, I would have shot him. Guarantee it. Because there was once on the walk in, like, Oklahoma or somewhere. I was sitting in the back of my pickup truck with Bethany, and we're sitting there, and I have my pistol on my hip. And this guy, he was walking down the road. He looked really just rough. He looked like he wasn't all there. He was on drugs or something. He was stumbling down the road. And I saw him coming, and I thought, this guy is dangerous. There's something about this guy. I don't know what it is. And I made up my mind there. If he gets there on the road and he runs at me, I'm going to pull my gun and shoot him. Because he might have a knife. I don't know what he's going to do. So if I was standing, I'm not going to let a 280-pound guy run me over. Like, you've got a 13-year-old kid standing there and this guy's going to run at you.
Yeah.
I mean, and people in their right mind don't act like this guy acted. And I haven't walked near all of the walk with, like, Jesse and Eric and Bethany. I'm like the, like, trail-in sidekick that just kind of shows up and goes back and shows up and just kind of here and there, I'm there, then I'm not. So I haven't seen it all. I haven't walked, the thousands of miles they have. But in the time I have walked, no one's ever acted like that. You get people that scream at you. You get people that F you off, middle finger. You get people, that argue with you. You get the guys that'll try to spend 30 minutes of their life convincing you why you shouldn't fly an upside-down flag. And they're like a paramedic, and it's like, well, I saved a baby once, so you should bow down and worship me. And it's like, I'm not even from your county. Like, I don't even know you. And, like, isn't that your duty? Don't you get paid to do that? Like, I'm not going to... people do that. People get mad. People spit on you. You're not going to share the gospel without people. But normal people don't get out of their truck and rush you and try to beat you up on the side of the highway.
No.
It's not. It just doesn't. Normal people don't do it. So I don't know if the guy that attacked us was on drugs, or if he was drunk, or if he was just plain demon possessed. I mean,
Or all of the above.
Or all of the above. I mean,
they go hand in hand.
They do. And you have to think, it's like right after something happens, you run all the scenarios through your head. Like, well, did I do something wrong?
Right.
Did I mess up? Could we have done something different? Could we have...
And to some degree, that's good to do because you want to check yourself as well and make sure you weren't in error.
Yeah, like I don't, looking back, I don't want to be a guy that assaults people. I don't want to be a guy, I don't want to be Mr., violent criminal. But I remember looking back thinking, okay, could we have said something softer? Could we have, but the fact is, we told the guy we don't want any trouble, we're leaving. That's pretty plain. Like, if you have any sense and someone says, look, we don't want any trouble, we're leaving, why don't you just let them leave? If you corner a cat, you're going to get scratched. I mean, that's just plain knowledge. Like, if you want to get scratched by a cat, put it in a corner, try to grab it. And so if someone says they're going to leave and you're like, no, I'm actually going to corner you at the back of your vehicle, then, like, you expect. If you attack someone, expect to get hit back. If you're an idiot, if someone says, I don't want any trouble, I'm going to leave, you're an idiot if you're like, actually, no, you're not, I'm going to try to beat you up. But if you're a sensible person, no matter how much you hate someone, you should probably be like, you know what? If these people are going to leave and I can actually just avoid a fight, maybe I should just avoid a fight. But instead, it's like, actually, no, cat's in the corner growling at me. Let's stick my hand in and see what happens. That's the essence of what happened. And it's not like Mr. Dude that attacked us is a saint. He owes people thousands of dollars. He's been banned from places in town. There's word that he's been arrested in the last few months for domestic violence on his girlfriend. And so you're saying, okay, so, suppose there was, let's just think for a minute, suppose there was a little bit of, misunderstanding, controversy. Well, they could have attacked him, so, we'll charge him, we'll take it to trial. Well, if the guy it's been 2 years, we haven't gotten any trouble. We don't have criminal records. I mean, you really think that I lived in a dorm with teenagers, minors, and worked at a boys ministry for years if I was a violent criminal given outbursts? That doesn't really compute. And so, we go 2 years, no get in trouble. Then this guy gets arrested for violence. If you're a normal prosecutor, you'd say, well, here's the truth, guys. This guy's obviously a violent criminal. He's now proven it. Charges are dropped. That's what you would expect from a reasonable prosecutor. But what we have here is not reasonable prosecution. What we have here is selective, malicious prosecution. And it's very obvious. It doesn't take Albert Einstein brains to figure that out. And what's funny is the state wants to, we'll take you to trial, we'll, this. Well, like, everybody you meet, it doesn't have to be, like, you can meet some random guy on the street, okay? You don't have to tell them our side of the story for them to figure it out.
Right.
You don't have to, I don't have to go up to someone and be like, look, this happened, I just really got to convince you I didn't do anything wrong, I'm an innocent person. I've never had to do that. And I'm not talking like friends, family, I'm talking strangers. We've met people on this walk in Montana and Idaho, Washington that have just ran across those videos online, that have ran across the case, and all of them say the same thing. They're appalled, it's disgusting, it's ridiculous. And at the end of the day, it is lawfare. It's the state twisting the law because they don't like us, because the right way to do the legal process is, here's the law, here's Mr. So-and-so that's accused of doing such and such. So what does the law say? What does Mr. So-and-so, what did he do? Is he worthy of this prosecution? Is it violent? Is he the type of person that needs to be prosecuted? Did he actually break the law? Did he have bad intent? What this is we hate so-and-so, we want to throw him in jail, how can we do it?
Well, even, that Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
He ended up winning, and he did shoot some people.
Yeah. And it's like we hate you because of your politics or your religion. So we've got to put you in jail. We've got to make a big statement.
Well, now our country has set a precedent in our courts. You know, it started with persecution of Alex Jones,
Yeah.
and then he was the test run, and then it went to prosecuting a president.
Yeah. I mean,
There's no more. This is the line. We don't cross it.
yeah, and you have what you have is a president that's been convicted of 34 felonies, and nobody knows what they are. And the judge literally was like, yeah, you actually don't have to have a unanimous decision this time, even though that's the law. Actually, technically, it's just 4 of you decide this. Basically, whatever you do, he's guilty. It's pretty much what the judge said.
Right.
You know?
You're going to interpret it this way.
Yeah. And that's that same lawfare. That's that same, well, Thorin Geist wants to get the judge to say that drawing a weapon cannot mean to point a weapon. Present a weapon cannot mean to point a weapon. Because, oh, sorry, Mr. Thorin, the law says you can't present a weapon. Bummer. But it's like, nope. We'll get around that. We'll just change the English language. We'll just write a whole new language to persecute these missionaries. Let's just, we'll just write a whole new language. You go to the dictionary, you present. It's like, it can mean to show something. Present can mean to pull up your, shirt and show your gun, but present also means to point. And if you look up, even modern dictionaries, to specifically point a gun, to specifically point a sword at the breast of an opponent. That's pretty specific. So, if we get a trial and Thorin's speaking Chinese, I'll know why. If he's like, yep, we're going to change we're just going to speak a whole different language so we can persecute you, we can put you in jail. That's what it is. And it's the same, it is. It's like what people see what's happened to Trump is a great travesty of justice. It doesn't matter what you think of the guy.
No.
You can be the most blue, whatever Democrat. It doesn't matter. It's total injustice. And the only reason that old Hunter Biden got convicted in his trial was so that the people persecuting Trump can say that the justice system is fair.
Right.
That's the only reason. If
he doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. He's just a little pawn. It's like, oh yeah. Well, we convicted a guy we hate, so now we have to convict a guy we like, so it looks good. But everybody sees through it.
Yeah, nobody likes that guy.
Everybody sees through it. And even, when your public defender is telling you that the charges are ridiculous, when other people are telling you this is ridiculous, when I've got a friend who, he's actually in prison in Wisconsin. He used to be at the boys ministry. He calls me about once a week. We chat, talk, and he's one of these guys, the prison systems don't help guys. No. Not at all. But he's one of these guys, he's trying to make the most of it. He's doing masonry classes, welding classes, taking college. He's 19. He's in there for a few years. He's trying to make the most of his life. But I called him the other day, just talking about stuff. I call him, and I'm not going to be the guy that's quiet. Like, I might be, I'm not going to, maybe go broadcast everything, but why should I be quiet about the truth? I'm going to talk to my friends, I'm going to talk to my family, I mean, how dare you tell me I can't? And I've never been told I can't. So when, my attorney's like, hey, look, the state sent this temper tantrum email. And I just told them, well, it's not our concern, whatever. When you send emails to my attorney, that's like, you're not supposed to talk to each other. We're going to get you, your bond revoked. I'm like, well, I've never been told I can't talk to people. No one's ever spelled it out for me. But, I'm talking to him the other day, and I'm telling him, this guy that attacked us has been arrested since. And he was like, that's literally grounds to get the case dismissed. Why haven't your lawyers gone and filed a motion with the court that's like, hey, look, Mr. Guy got arrested, total grounds. I mean, the case should have been dismissed anyway, but it's like, that alone.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but the footage that was leaked has not been admitted into evidence.
No, not according to my knowledge.
As of this moment,
yes,
anyway.
At this moment. And the prosecution threw a whole stink about, no, the footage is out there. Our secret plans are ruined. And, they want to blame us for it or blame our former attorneys for it. At the end of the day, I don't know how it got out there. I just stumbled across it on Facebook. But I'm glad it's out there. I mean, it's like, okay, so if it's the truth, and if you're actually prosecuting justly, why are you so afraid of the truth coming out? I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I don't want to go to trial. It's a big waste of time. It's stupid. It's an injustice in itself. But I'm excited.
Taxpayer money wasted.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited. Get the guy that attacked us up on the stand. See if he can not lose his temper. Get his witnesses up and ask him, okay, were there 7 of us? Were there 14 of us? Were there 3 of us? Were we all little kids? Because it seems like it. But, was it like 4-year-olds out there beating up Mr. Terrell? Or, were we driving a go-kart? Were we driving a Ferrari? What did you see exactly? And at the end of the day, this whole thing brings to mind a metaphor from Pilgrim's Progress, the second part. Most people read the first part, but they don't read the second part. And in the second part, it's in the house of the interpreter. And they're showing these symbols. And there's a symbol, there's this guy in a white robe, and there's 2 guys with a pile of mud. And they got shovels, and they're just shoveling mud on the guy. They're just working, they're going ham, shoveling mud on the guy. Well, all the mud bounces off the guy with the white robe and coats him. And he just gets more white, more clean. The guys shoveling on him just get more muddy. And, the answer to the parable is when wicked men try to throw dirt on righteous men, they just look worse themselves. For everything these guys say about us, for everything the trolls say about us, or the,
they haven't been,
demoniac, maniac, psychopathic, lunatics, whatever you want to call them.
I heard the trolls are back under the bridge.
Yeah, they are. They're kind of hiding in their cave. They've been subdued by the light. Lord of the Rings, trolls can't come out. Light burns their skin. Well, when the light comes, the darkness goes back to hiding. And
I actually think Golem looks better than this guy online, but that's just my opinion.
He does, and
it could be cousins, direct descendant. Maybe.
He probably is. Well,
I heard that somewhere.
I heard that in the courtroom the other day, old troll looked like Golem. He was just like. And what's interesting is that, what is Gollum? Gollum is a shriveled up little thing that has driven himself to insanity with greed and lust and wickedness.
Definitely a pee-pee toucher.
I mean, yeah, he's literally like this little slimy, crawly, precious, responsive. Whatever. What are trolls? What's this little dude, whatever his face is? A shriveled up little maniac that has driven himself, maybe not to the physical appearance of Gollum, although close. But, maybe not to the literal, you're crawling on hands eating fish and calling them juicy and crunchy.
Still time.
But you've driven yourself to that same point by your lust and your greed and probably your child trafficking and your everything else you're doing. And you've given yourself over to a reprobate mind and you're a little puppet in the devil's game. And what these people, what's so funny about people that, it's not funny, but what's so delusional about people that persecute Christians is we're going to serve our father the devil. And guess what? Your father the devil actually hates you. He's actually going to drag you down to the pit of hell. There's the devil doesn't love. He doesn't love his followers he hates, He just knows he's going to lose. And so you've got to get as many people in the pit with you. And, it's okay, say all you want. Good luck getting it to stick. Good luck. And what are you going to say? You come up for trial and you're like, so you broke the law. I can't tell you how you broke the law. But you, the jury, definitely need to find these people guilty because they definitely did something wrong. But so you're going to tell me that I drove out to propose to my now wife. I have a ring on my person. Then I'm just going to set aside all my life dreams and plans to attack some random guy that kindly asked us to move out of his driveway, which is actually a public road.
You just want a coffee.
Yeah, it's I just wanted a coffee. So it's you really think I'm I need a coffee. The quickest way to get a coffee is to beat up an old man and steal it from him, but that's not even, it's what, where's the logic? It's so we've been walking these miles, we've been doing this with no trouble, and we just randomly decided.
Motive is lacking.
Yeah, motive is there's no motive. But nobody wants to talk about the circumstantial evidence.
Of course.
It's, the police report isn't, we talked to these people, they explained how this guy came up and yelled and screamed and cussed them out and threatened them. Their thing is nope, Mr. Phillips admitted to hitting Mr. Terrell with a cross. And I'm so I could take one sentence out of Job and corrupt all of Christian doctrine if I wanted to. Probably. You'll take one little statement, but you won't take the whole story. And so that's where, bring it on. Do I want it? No. Do I desire to be, go up to some snow-ridden little ghost town in October, right before election, go sit in a little trial where your courthouse has had mold for 2 years? Like, what county can't pay to fix their courthouse? Like, you have got to be kidding me. It's like, nope, 2022, can't have it in the courthouse, mold. 2023, the mold's still there. And now it's 2024, and it's like, we still haven't got around to that mold problem. We can spend lots of money to prosecute you, but we can't fix the mold in the courthouse because we got to keep it private. We gotta shut the public out. And here's my question: if you're gonna stick us all in a room the size of this garage and try to have a jury trial, where are you gonna select your jury? Where are you gonna call in? I mean, the state's asking for 48 total challenges. So let's see, 300 people, 400 people. Pretty soon you're gonna have an eighth of the whole county out there.
And how many of them are unbiased? Yeah,
I mean, how many of them are unbiased? But then it's okay, so where are you gonna put 300? Are you gonna make 300 people stand out on the snowy street in -10 temperatures with a wind chill in Virginia City and be like, do you hate Christians or not? Are you a Christian or not? What do you think about gun rights? And someone's like, I think we should get warm. You're like, what? Or if you're going to spend the money to go rent some massive room to get the juries, why can't you rent it to have a trial? I mean,
it's like Swiss cheese.
Yeah, it's just full of holes. The whole thing's full of holes. And it really is ridiculous.
Do you know the history much of Virginia City? There was a...
the sheriff got hung once.
Yeah, there was a crooked sheriff that they lynched.
Maybe they should do it again.
He supposedly had a bunch of treasure and could be a 30-minute horse ride there and back or something like that. And they were like, nah, we just want to lynch you.
Yeah. Well,
it's got a good history of taking care of corruption in the old days.
And here's the thing, his word is that Mr. Officer that was laughing when I got put in the truck, he had some great falling out with his common law wife, which is, I guess, a fancy word for fornication, that, he's out of town. He's gone. He's out of the state. He doesn't run off. And, then there's word that the Mr. guy that was like, walking across America together, getting to jail together, people in the county say that he's not around. So, I mean, the state of Montana's like, okay, we don't have enough money to fix our courthouse, but we're going to subpoena someone from California to come here to testify in a trial. Or we're going to... I mean, it's ridiculous. And I think my view is we trust the Lord, we bear good fruit, and what happens, happens, and God will take care of it. I mean, God can turn little Gollum trolls into little fleas. God can take little Gollum and throw him in the lava. Bye-bye. And, God could kill Thorngeist right now. God could kill those cops. God could strike them all down their sleep. And why he doesn't, I don't know. But maybe it's one, to teach us more long-suffering, teach us more patience, more trust, more faith. Maybe we need to suffer more for his sake. We're nobodies. You've got pro-lifers there that are facing 11 years in prison for sitting outside a hallway singing hymns, defending the unborn. We're nobodies. Prove me guilty, put me on a little bit of probation. Okay. Whatever. But if people see us, which they shouldn't, they should just see Jesus through us. But if they're going to see us, what they need to take is courageous faith, so that when they're persecuted, they don't back down. So that when they're persecuted, they'll follow to the end. They'll take up their cross, they'll deny themselves, and they'll follow Jesus. And if they're going to see us, they need to see that it's not just us. It's not just Trump. It's not like corrupt courts are a new thing. Jefferson Davis was held in prison for several years after the Civil War, and they never would try him. Because they knew if we try him for treason, he will prove that secession is constitutionally allowed. They knew it. And you know what they did eventually? They were like, we're just going to kick him out of jail. They didn't pardon him. They didn't give him his citizenship back. Which is funny. If you don't have U.S. citizenship, how can you be a traitor? Whatever. But, corrupt courts are not a new phenomenon.
There's just more cameras.
There's just more cameras. There's just more media. And, my hope is that Christians wake up. One, it's happening, it's coming. But two, that doesn't mean you should go hide in your little gopher hole. Don't go hide in your steeple and kill time while Jesus was slain on the cross for sinners. Don't use persecution as an excuse to move out into your little colony and forsake all the troubles of the world. Persecution should give us boldness. The apostles in Acts weren't like, okay, Lord, Herod's really mean. Can you just please take Herod away? No, it was, Lord, give your servants boldness. And so, people need to wake up to what's going on around them. They need to wake up that it's not just blue that's the tyranny. The blue will throw Trump in jail, but the red will try to throw us in jail. You go red and you come around to the Nazis, and you go blue and you come around to Stalin. And all of it without Christ is useless. Man-made politics is like, I don't know, the Trojan horse with no men inside.
Right.
It's a bad metaphor, but it's useless. You're not going to fix the spiritual problems. You're not going to fix the drugs and the alcohol and the trafficking and all that with politics, with red, with blue, with governors, and Trump ain't going to fix it. And you're going to fix it with Jesus Christ. And people need to wake up, and they need to get off their butts and do something. And they don't, it'd be nice if a Samson would go up to the Capitol and tear it all down. I mean, I'd love it. Justice is served, but we don't need a political revolution. We don't need all the Christians to go grab guns and shoot the politicians. We need Christians to go grab Bibles and tracts and spread the gospel.
Sometimes you just need 3 guys in a furnace.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you don't have to be some world-renowned missionary. Like, go to your job, whatever mission field God has planted you in, go and serve and be a light. And something that it's not an original saying at all. And it comes from these pro-lifers that are being persecuted. And one of them said in an interview, he said, what this teaches us is that this is Christianity 101. Persecution is not a phenomenon. We're not like the 2%, it's not like we're special Christians because we're being persecuted, or like the pro-lifers are special. Like, Jesus says that all that live godly will face persecution. Like, why are we so surprised?
They hated me, they're going to hate you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I look back and I'm like, why was I so surprised that the cops were corrupt? Why was I so surprised that this is ridiculous? Why did it shock me so much? And it's because I just thought, I got a good county sheriff at home, so maybe all the county sheriffs are good, Guy's got a badge, he's, But it all comes down to, we put hope in so many things, but we don't put hope in Christ. And God is in control. God knew Montana was going to happen before it was born. And God uses things like that in weird ways. I mean, like, I write books, and I know how to write, like, the scene of someone in a prison cell now. Because I've lived it, And that friend I have in prison in Wisconsin, I can relate to him now. I have the right to tell him, you need to stay encouraged, you need to stay in the Word, you need to keep going. I haven't been I was in jail for as long as him, but I told him once, now I've earned the right to encourage you. Because God put me through that, and now I know what it's like. I know what the food's like, and so I can tell you that I'm praying for you, you need to be in your Word, you need to be a light to your fellow prisoners, and you need to keep going. And I'm not going to trade that for the world. I'm not going to trade the experience for anything. And I'm definitely not, it's like, oh, you just take a little plea deal, Lie. Say you did something you didn't. Or, no contest. Say, no, I actually didn't, but I'm going to accept unjust punishment. Like, that doesn't sound very, and like...
Sounds like compromise.
Yeah, it sounds like compromise. Like, if you're going to take a hill and you're going to die on it, you better not walk back off of And there's a lot of hills in life that I'm not going to die on. And this one, I'm not going to die on it because of what it is, but I'm willing to die on it on principle. And
meek, not weak.
Yeah, meek, not weak. Meekness is not weakness. And the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they knew that their God was able to deliver them. They knew it. They didn't know He would. They would have glorified God if they got burned up. And God would have been glorified. They would have died a martyr's death and went to be with the Lord. But their confidence was in we know God can deliver us. We know God hears us, and whether He does or not, we're fine. It's like Jesus said, they can kill the body, they can't kill the soul. And one of those pro-lifers recently, a lady named Heather Idoni, when they sentenced her, she said, "You can put my body wherever you want to, but you cannot imprison my spirit. You can't imprison my soul." And so, if the days come in America where they're lobbing heads and they're hanging us and they're putting us away and putting us in the lion's den, the same truths today are the same truths tomorrow. I don't want, in my own life, I don't want the hard times or the persecution. I'd like to have a little house and have some kids and, raise a family, whatever. But if God wants us to suffer, who are we to say we shouldn't? God wants us to glorify Him through sharing the suffering of Jesus. Why should we run from that so hard? And grass doesn't grow if it doesn't rain. It just doesn't. The mountains might get no tornadoes, no crazy thunderstorms and stuff, but the grass isn't very pretty up there.
And you don't get wine without crushing some grapes, and you don't get a diamond without immense pressure.
Yeah, it's just, we look for the temporal, we need to look at the eternal. And I'm guilty of it. I get caught up just thinking, man,
Sure.
I gotta just pay the bills, and I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with these book things, and I gotta figure out, how to be a good steward of just my life and my day and my this and that. And we need to think on those things. We need to be good stewards of what we're given and be faithful in the ministries and the jobs and but we also got to realize this is all for Christ. And so, at the end of the day, if I cannot glorify God washing dishes, then I cannot glorify God. If I can't give God glory in the littlest of actions, if I can't be content, then I don't have the right to do something greater. And that's something, where the boys' ministry is located is flat, boring, cotton and cornfields and peanut fields. It's just, it's not pretty land. The people there are kind of junk. It's just, you don't really want to live there. I never want to live there again. But I once told the Lord when I was there, if you tell me to be here for the rest of my life, and if you tell me to live here for the rest of my life and serve you, I'll do it. And I'm thankful God's never told me to do that. But I remember it was something I was afraid to pray. Because it was such a, this is not where I ever want to be. But I prayed it, and God had me there another year. To make me learn something different. To make me learn, you know what? You're fine. Serve me. You don't need this to serve me. You don't need that. If you're just stuck in this tiny little town with all these boys, you're fine. Just serve me. And then God was like, go. But it wasn't until I was surrendered. And so I want to be surrendered in this Montana thing. I'll fight it to the death, but I want to be surrendered to the Lord. Well, whatever happens, happens. Be content. Serve. And that's kind of that's the end of it. There's nothing more. We're going to go walk. We're going to serve the Lord. After the walk's over, the Lord will direct. And whether it's the craziest travels or most mundane 9 to 5. I'm going to serve Jesus. And I want to be content and follow.
I think that's a good place to wrap up.